It is January 4th, 2021. How you doing, my friend?
First Monday of the year. I'm excited. Monday's my favorite day of the week. Anybody knows me. Monday's my favorite day of the week to get things going. Pretty decent day. Not as think as much done as I'd like to and whatnot. That's kind of always the case.
Monday's the land of opportunity, man. It is, it's crazy to think this actually is the first Monday of the year. And so for those of you who don't know, Brian and I, this is Mindset Monday. We're going to be normalizing the conversation around things that went well, things that didn't go so well, and what we can do moving forward. Obviously, from my perspective, I'm going to be bringing a coaching approach to this, breaking down some of the things into layman's terms. From Brian's perspective, Brian is really an expert on brands and people, places, things that can help people stay accountable moving forward. This is Monday number one. We're going to be having some fun stuff come out, specifically around inviting people on, having conversations. But this is really about normalizing the conversation of how your mindset is actually doing. And this is a really special one, simply because we just finished the holidays. How were the holidays for you?
Holidays are something I've always kind of struggled with, especially since moving to Colorado. Originally from Northeast Ohio, and haven't got to get back as much as I'd like to. You know what I mean? So don't really get to see my family as much as I need to. It's the end of the year. I'm an extrovert, and so I'm always loving to connect with people, chat with people, and do stuff. And the world slows down. And for me, I'm like, my brain goes, "Oh, this is the time to speed up," because everybody's sitting on the bench and the sidelines. I know that sounds like a wild term for people, but people with their families and holidays. And
yeah,
sorry, I'm yawning because it's late on a Monday, but I apologize for that. But yeah, they're all right. Could be better. I'm excited for the for the new year.
Yeah. Like you said, it's one of those things where, I know from experience, and I can level with you there, that it feels like a time where it normally speeds up. And it's mainly because, so my wife and I, we have both of our families out here, at least our parents out here. So we have, mom's side of the family, dad's side of the family on both sides. So for the longest time, we did the 4 Christmases, right? And now that we have a baby, and it was our first Christmas with a baby, that changed some of it a lot. And it was actually really stressful, simply for the fact that, like, you have a baby and you don't want to push it with the baby. Like, our baby was, like, Christmas, he was 11 months. And obviously we're at 1-4, so his birthday's right around the corner for 1 year. And one, he was a champ. I did not think that he was going to do as well as he did, because he has a normal routine. He did really well, and it made it so much less stressful, because we went into it being in the mindset of, well, this is how much time we can have. This is when we need to do things. Right. And it was really stressful because it was a new challenge for us. And my wife and I, we recently just moved into this home, and so we're like freshly in the home. People kind of want to come over. We're going and seeing people. And normally the holidays are very fast paced, which can be stressful. It was stressful for a while. And there'd be times where we would sit back and we'd be like, we wouldn't necessarily look forward to the holidays, because for us, it meant really long days, because we live an hour away from our families. And so we would go and see one family, drive an hour, go see another part of the family, and then drive another hour. And it was just long. And so for a while, the holidays have not been something in which I normally look forward to, because I just know that there's stress and it's long days, and you feel really tired. You feel kind of exhausted. Now, I know there's probably some people out there who deal with that same thing. But this year was a little bit different. And because of COVID and all this other stuff, it wasn't actually as busy, which was kind of a blessing. But I think going into the holidays, I hit a lot of milestones, and I deployed a sense of being grateful that I haven't really had before. Because and I think you know this, and I've mentioned it on my podcast too. A year ago, I was like unemployed, trying to figure out how the hell my wife and I were going to afford even having our firstborn. And we were living in a townhome that we were barely able to afford. And we were on the ramen diet. Like that, we legitimately bought,
that's real.
Like, and I kid you not, we bought, it was ramen, instant rice, and chicken. And like, that was it. Like, and it was one of those things where, and on like December 10th or something like that, 10th or 14th, I had gotten my first like unemployment check. And so it was one of those things where last year on Christmas, I was at like Christmas 2019 was a relatively low point.
Yeah.
In the grand scheme of things, it was one of the lowest points that I've ever felt in. However, during that time, I also launched my podcast, and I paid everything that I'd ever made in coaching to get a coach. And so I like, there's bottom of the barrel and still having some money. And then there's like bottom of the barrel, and you also spent all of your money, like put your chips into the middle of the table, and you're like, come hell or high water, like stuff's changing. And obviously, like I went into, and I had been looking for, work and stuff like that, and just grinding for months, because, I had lost the job that I had in the September previous to, September 2019. And so like Thanksgiving were kind of tough. Like everybody's asking you like, hey, have you found a job? Have you found this? Have you found that? Right. And you don't want to talk to anybody. Right.
No.
And it's just tough, because the questions that are coming your way, because for me, I grew up in a household that was very like, hey, you're the provider, right? Like you're the man in the house, you're a provider.
Yeah.
And I married someone whose lifelong dream was to be an incredible mother, which is, when you think about that, like that's like the heart. Being a father and being a husband now, like I can easily say like being an incredible parent isn't one hell of a hard job to have. That's one of the most difficult things that a human being can do, is raise a human being with love and care and attention and patience. Forget being a CEO, forget being like anything else. Being a parent is really difficult. Doing it well is even more difficult. So this year, having moved into a new home that my wife and I had built, having a baby that was 11 months, that in November had COVID, had a skin infection, and had another infection. And it was scary for a few days. Like I had never felt so helpless in my life when like you have doctors say like, we got to see how he does. And you're just like, this is bull crap. Like, right. Like as a parent, the only thing you want is for your kid to be healthy. So, and when we got kind of that green light, like November 10th, when they're like, he's going to be okay. Like Thanksgiving was really it was really thankful, but we were also settling into the home. So there's still a little bit of a fast-paced mindset to all of it. When the holidays this year came around, I legitimately, and taking a moment so I don't get emotional about it, but it was one of those things where
Get it out, let it out.
I actually had gotten emotional because like I was just thinking about how thankful I actually am and how blessed and how grateful I am to have what I have, and realize like everything's going to be okay no matter what. Like that's part of trusting the process. So this year, the holidays, like they meant just so much more. And I'll say this, they didn't mean more. I think I was just so much more present with them. And that was just a blessing. And I mean, it's like, it'll be one for like the record books, being like, it's crazy what can happen in a year when you decide to just like shift everything. And when we hit this past Christmas, I was just in this mindset of, man, like this is what happens. So that was nuts. Yes, it was a little bit stressful, but putting it into perspective, like, man, it was
You're
just
so much better for going through that though. Like,
right?
like it's even like, I totally get it. Like I said, you've had your 2020 has been up because your 2019 was, and I think it's interesting. Like as many people as they want to like every time I get on social and I see someone like making, like, I'm like, you're still talking about 2020 being a bad year? We still talking about that? Like, we still making 2020 memes? Like, we still doing that? And listen, somebody's going to see this who's a friend of mine who I love, but like, stop posting that shit.
It's hard because like, and I get why people do it, right? Like there are people who lost jobs. Yes, there are people who had real financial relationship
100%.
impacts. But the people who are not impacted by it are not serving. I'm sorry, but you're not serving anybody by saying 2020 sucks. All you're doing is trying to, at that point, it's the vanity of it all. Like 2020 sucks, and a lot of people are going to chime in and comment and like and whatever, and try and feel that with you because it's easy to do. And it's the harder road to say 2020 was an unbelievably incredible year. Despite all the things that happened, it was life-changing for everybody. Yeah. And the way that you look at it is completely under your own control. 100%. So to your point, like for people out there who they want to whine, they want to complain, like, that's your call.
Yeah.
But also know, like, it will never serve you and it will never serve anybody else by
a bad use of time.
It does. Yeah, it doesn't serve you. It just doesn't. And but here's the kicker with it. People who are posting that stuff, what that immediately tells me is you're going through some things. You're going through some shit.
Fine.
And you're not okay with saying, hey, I'm not okay and I don't know how to handle this. Mm-hmm. Coping is hard. If you don't know how to cope, like when did you realistically learn how to cope with stuff?
I don't know if I have. I just think I have a different mentality than people. You know what I mean? I just don't, maybe my lack of coping or anything else, issues I have just doesn't manifest in the same way. So I don't necessarily want to say I'm better or different than anybody. I just think it's just basic. I'm just anti-basic,
And I'm not a professional at coping either. Like, yes, I understand how people can cope and what may help people in general. But I still have those moments where I like shut down, right? Like I have things that are just full blown press the big red button, like something comes up and the big red button gets pressed and I'm like paralyzed and I need to learn but the only thing that's different between me and maybe someone else who goes through that is when those things happen and I realize like the black cloud has started, and every thought in the world is starting to occur within my mind for how stuff sucks, how I'm not enough, how what I'm doing isn't enough, how I should be somewhere else, how I shouldn't be here, I should be there, I should be doing this, I should. When those things happen, I understand how to slowly, you think of it as like a Trojan horse, right? It comes in and all the like the people inside are excuses, fears, uncertainty, doubts, everything. I know how to strategically begin to fight that battle. And it may be me versus, it may be me versus 100, but they have swords and I have a sniper rifle. Yeah. And I see it coming, and I know how to start plucking those things off one by one until I get back to center, until I get back to the point where,
I don't know if that's necessarily coping mechanisms. I think that's self-awareness. That way you don't have to get in a position. Like, to me, when I think coping, I think like this has happened and I'm in it. You know what I mean? And when you say plucking off, I'm like, no, those are, to me, that's good self-awareness and self-emotional defense. Maybe that's a word I just made up.
Well, you bring up a really good point. So I should probably put a definition behind it in terms of coping. It is how you move from a reactive state back to a proactive state. That's what, for me, that's kind of the definition of coping. Something happens in your life that puts you into a reactive state, which normally a reactive state is either the fight, flight, or fawn type of stuff. Like,
what's fawn?
Fawn is like roll over on your belly and just be like, I'm going to die here. I'm in my hole and I'm just going to, and I almost just spilled my water. I'm in my hole and I just want to die. Like, that is like, that's kind of the fawn thing. Like, it is playing possum and just hoping it passes over, because flight is, I don't want to be anywhere near it. And then fight is, I'm like, it's the piss and vinegar approach, right? So that's normally what reactionary looks like for a lot of people. Now, obviously there's different flavors of that in there, but coping is moving from that type of state back to at least neutral, right? Where nothing is impacting you negatively, but you may not also be having something impact you positively, which sometimes is the best place for people to try and get to. Because I know that, it happens to me. Like, sometimes I just have to learn to let go, and I need to understand when something is happening. Yeah, there are times where I can shift from, hey, this sucks, to let me do this so that I can create opportunity out of this. And it can, like, it's like nitrous, right? And you feel really good. But then there are other times where I'm like, I just need to figure out how to stop backing the car up and just get back to neutral before I even consider moving forward. Because it happens. It probably is one of those things where one time a week I have a moment where, fear, uncertainty, doubt, whatever you want to say, starts to creep in. And you need to learn how to cope with it.
I think I appreciate you sharing that, because I think sometimes when people see, and I think you're doing way more work than me, but as a coach, as a leader, however people like to phrase people who do things that we do, they think that we're infallible or that we don't have bad moments or things like that. And I think it's just like, nah, just push through it more than anything. So I appreciate you sharing that. I think that's good for people to hear.
I appreciate you saying that. Like, it's, and that's part of this. Like, it's why we're doing this. We're here. You and I are here to show that everybody's just a human being. And I had somebody, I was, one of the things that I did during the fall was I helped coach my alma mater high school in football. And to see the way in which high schoolers who honestly wake up every other day and find something new with their body deal with COVID, in all of the political, like everything that goes on with it. I got to see the whole roller coaster of, you know, some guy showing up late because something, where it would be like 8 a.m. and he wanted to, you know, like fight people, and you're sitting there and you're looking around, you're like, where is this coming from? Too, like, you know, even during a game where you have people exploding because there's just so much stimulation going on from what's going to happen. Are we even going to be able to practice tomorrow? Are we even going to have another game? Like, it was really a day by day type of thing. And so watching volatile young men, as any male who's like in their teens is going to have some volatility. Why? Because you're just trying to figure out how to create any level of certainty, and you throw a young man or woman into hey, for the next few months, everything's uncertain. You're going to get pissed off. And I got to witness that stuff. And seeing how they coped with things was so interesting, because it put a lot of perspective into how people start coping with things now. And I've never seen a group of young men be forced to be transparent with each other in order to keep their sanity.
It should happen so much sooner. I mean, sports do it. You know what I mean? Sports are the only atmosphere that might come. You know what I mean, too? But like,
yes.
So sports and athletics and activities are so huge. And it's even funny, you know, earlier from another conversation we had, we talked about using sports analogies and things like that. From a communication standpoint, like, I think if so many businesses had, like, whatever you saw in that locker room with the heart-to-heart and the communication, if more brands and businesses did that and had those real convos, man, your stuff would go. Instead of going, I've been here 2-3 years longer, so I did it. You know what I mean? Like, just having that. Listen, I know the role you play on the team, whether you're the owner, the chief, the director, whatever. Like, I know the position you play. It's not that lack of respect, but like, you're still a human, and this is what's happening. Yes. And your 3 more years of experience don't negate the fact that this is a communication issue, or these are what the team, city culture, employees, whatever, have going on. You know?
Yep. Absolutely. I mean, I couldn't agree more with that. I think with everything going on, and especially now realizing that 2021 is here, and when January 1st came around, I made a joke where I was just like, we can finally take off these masks. And
right.
As like it was only a 2020 thing. It wasn't, obviously. We're all still here. We're all still dealing with this. But the mindset of, I can finally start moving forward starts to creep in, or I can finally start making change comes in.
Calendars are nice. You know, I think it's that. Yes. The calendar's a nice reset for people in the big scheme of things, you know, but I don't want to get real hippie on it, but I think I've told you, like, time is fake is my new analogy and stuff like that. But like, I also am like, that's a calendar, you know, like, you know, most people didn't start their new resolutions till today, you know.
Yes. And while there are some people who they look at the calendar and they're like, hey, 2021 is going to be amazing, go to hell 2020 type of thing. There's a few ways that I see that, right? And one of the ways that I see it is, okay, someone is omitting what has been to try and fabricate what will be, which is creating an expectation, which can be really tough. Expectations are a very dangerous game to start playing, because if you create an expectation and for some reason the world doesn't meet it, then you get pain. Like, it's self-created pain. And most people don't know when to stop dealing with pain, and therefore they start creating suffering. Suffering is that self-imposed I can't, the world doesn't meet the vision that I have for it. And there's nothing I can do about it. Once you say there's nothing I can do about something, that's where suffering comes in. I've dealt with suffering and suffering is completely optional. And if you or someone else is like dealing with suffering, you just gotta, number one, check your expectations, right? Like if you think 2021 is like, oh, the pandemic's gone, it'll be gone, everything will go back to normal. If that's your expectation coming into 2021, you have not been paying attention to anything, because in reality, no one has said, here is when everything will go back to normal, because nobody knows, right? So instead, there are people who say, I am going to make 2021 this and this and this and this, which is why my first podcast episode was about getting massive results during 2021, which is all about planning. Like if you expect the world to meet your vision that you have for it, then you're going to lose. But if you say, here's what I'm going to accomplish in 2021, then you find a way. You start to say, okay, if these are the things I want to create, how do I need to accept and plan around the things that are right now, and create a level of acceptance that maybe you have not yet had? And that, I think, is one of the things that, for me personally, I have very much thought about, because for me, the whole goal for me for 2021 is growth. And that's, growing my podcast, that's growing as a husband, growing as a father, growing in terms of like the frequency and intensity in which I work out, and taking my health and physical nutrition, all these other things more seriously, growing in that area, growing spiritually. Really, it's kind of like the Zig Ziglar's 7 areas of life type of thing, like figuring out what growth means in all those things, because I know they're all there, but for some people, they just need to find a theme, because they try and hit the home run immediately, where they say, hey, I want to have, like, what does financial success for 2021 look like? They're like, I'm going to make $5 million. And you create this, you create this very specific number that you have to hit, or else you lose. But it's different if you start taking that approach of the mindset of, what does mastery look in it? Like, if you were going to master your relationships, what does mastery even mean to you? Or what does growth look like? And that's been super helpful for me, especially coming into this first week, and thinking, okay, if growth is something I want to accomplish in my podcast, what does that mean I have to do? What are the things that lead to growth? And that means there are certain like doing a redesign of my logo may not mean growth, right? So it cuts out the stuff that I just can't do. I don't know if you've done something like that so far. Like, what is that? Have you even looked into that?
I'm working on it, because one of the things in my self-awareness, I put too much on my plate at once. And sometimes it allows me, and it's all things I'm creating myself. Some of it can work, but it's always like, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do that. And I need to one at a time. You know what I mean? Things like that. So I'm looking at that now. That's some of the stuff I'll be asking you about, frankly, more. But I am trying to dwindle it down. It's funny, since this is Mindset Monday, I was going to show you. This is a planner that I've been rocking with, that our whole team does, actually. And it's got, we can't really see that super well. It's got the day, like, for the week.
Yep. Goal for today, priorities, schedule. Nice.
Oh, wait, that's the today. So I'm trying to focus in on that for the today aspect of it. And then I'll show you what the week one looks like. For the week one, it's kind of similar. Where it's like, oh, can you see it? No?
Just see your beautiful face.
Oh, let's do this. Hold on, we'll get rid of this guy. I'll redo this.
Mindset Monday, session 1.
So this is the week.
Oh,
it
cool.
tells you, like,
Yep.
where you're at and stuff like that. Oh, no, that's the day. Sorry, it scrolled back. So back to the week. Sorry.
So you start with the week and then it goes through day by day?
Yeah. So I'm trying to show you a week page. Okay. So there's a week one.
Nice.
And then you've seen the day for the instance of editing. Scroll to that.
And what is this? What's this planner?
I'll send you the link for it. Because it's in the best way to kind of like narrow in a little bit for me. Like, okay, what's on the table this week? How am I bringing that into the day? I've got a link for it that I can send you.
Beautiful.
This is something on Amazon, like an Amazon basis.
And one thing I think my wife got this on Amazon. This is what I use for most days. This is a planner, and you can see like it has today's date, phone calls, stuff like that, goals for today, business goals, other things like that. And it's two-sided. So it's like a pad. So you can keep it with you, like walk around. There's stuff like personal to-dos. Did you drink enough water? Like, what are your big ideas? Other things like that. So like, that's kind of what I use. Cause I like something that is like a tearaway, like something that is like that checkbox. Now, obviously one thing that I do want to get into this year more so, because it's not something that I've naturally done in the past, is the journaling part of it, where I get to reflect on some of those things. Now, obviously I get to do some of those things with like podcasts, I get to journal some stuff, because a lot of the time, or there will be a lot of times on podcast episodes where I'm talking about challenges that I've either noticed or I've faced or other stuff like that. And it's like a digital journal almost. And for those of you who don't want to write anything, just start a podcast and you can do a vocal journal for everything. And it can keep you accountable to it, because you have an audience that you need to provide content to, because there are people who are interested in your story. So that's a plug for anybody who is thinking about doing a podcast. Flip and do it, because your story is more important and more powerful than you think. Which that was one of the big takeaways after I hit my 1-year anniversary with my podcast. I realized how important it is for me to talk in depth about the things that that are challenging for me. I mean, for me, one of the big things that has been challenging for me specifically within stuff like coaching is going out and finding inspiring people who would be like dream clients.
Right.
Because I work with people, and everybody who is a client or will be a client, like I love all of them.
It's one of those things. Some people than others. It's no different than
So it would be like
a trainer or coach of any kind.
Yeah. So if somebody asked me the question like, "Who's your dream client?" and I have the same answer that I had years ago when somebody asked me this, and it was another coach who asked me this question. He said, if you woke up tomorrow and looked at your calendar and saw a client on there that made you just about crap your pants, who would it be? And I said, Derrick Rose. Like, he would be, because Derrick Rose is such an incredible individual when it comes to his work ethic, his mindset, the challenges he's gone through. I mean, you think about somebody who has massive potential and just gets caught up in, gets dealt crappy hands, like, gets injured or gets traded or whatever. He's just someone who is so deeply in love with the game of basketball. Like, he's someone who, if I got to work with him, I'd be like, this is nuts. And I did DM him on Instagram. He's probably is still working through the 500 million DMs that mine's at the bottom of. But like, going out of my way to grow in terms of the clients that I work with growing in terms of the caliber of people who initially inspire me, because everybody who I work with has moments where they inspire me, but people who inspire me before I work with them, right? Like there's a lot of things where I talk to people who are really interesting, and some of them have become a client of mine and they're incredible. But going out of my way to push myself into that space of, hey, I'm going to go ask so-and-so that probably gets approached every single day, or, by all these amazing famous people. And here comes so-and-so out of, nowhere, Colorado, who wants to work with you. Right. That's the fear, uncertainty, doubt. That's kind of the challenge that I'm faced with, is how do I break through from that? And it comes down to just action, right? Like that's the action. So and from that, I think with the NFL season coming to an end, like there are teams that have played their last game this week, cause I want to, like, we've talked a lot about, or at least I know I've talked a lot about, like how the holidays went and where I'm kind of at. I think the big thing for this week, like the mindset of it, is don't be afraid to start conversations. Don't be afraid to reach out to people who you normally would be like, this is someone who's too famous to even consider having a conversation with me. Just ask. Yeah, right. I think that's the mindset of like, be bold. And like this week, be bold in my conversations.
Yeah. It's funny. So a good friend of mine, first of all, have you seen the D-Rose documentary Pooh?
I have not, and I need to.
So my good friend Anthony Mazuka was kind of a part of that. He's a communications manager, director of communication for Watch Stadium. So it's on Watch Stadium, which is like a sports network, like a Bleacher Report, like an ESPN.
Yeah.
But it's on there, and it's funny because recently, I think I mentioned this earlier, my best friend Seth Stewart the other day, I was talking about something. He's like, man, I want to be like D Rose. And it's just funny, like two people who I communicate closely in the last week. Like D Rose is, he's an all-star. He's around, but like people don't talk like that about him. He doesn't, because of his career and, his injuries and things like that, probably won't get the respect that he deserves.
If he was healthy, if he had that, and the thing is, when you play sports, you're going to get injured, and it comes down to timing and luck and 1,000 different things. If he had that luck where he stayed healthy throughout his whole career thus far, I mean, there's zero doubt in my mind that he would be way past like Allen Iverson legend status, he's a game changer. Like he can take over the game at a moment's notice because he has that gear and he has that mentality where he can say, it doesn't matter. And I mean, what was it? The one dunk where he's like, I wanted to jump higher. And he like straight up just like almost jumped over someone who is just way taller than him. Like the stuff that he does on the court, and just the person that he is, the humility that he has is like, it's infectious. Right. So, I mean, and those are the types of people who I want to work with, because just like
he's a huge introvert too. He's a big introvert.
Yeah. Like he's someone who he leaves it all out there for the people who he's close to. And he gives it all for the people who he cares about. And because he's not trying to people please, right? He just loves the process of being involved with whatever he is involved with. And he gives in deeply to it, which, and I'm very much an introvert as well. Like I wake up with a certain amount of coins, and every social interaction I give a coin. And by the end of the day, I'm broke. Right.
Yeah. Are you tired? Do you like, it's so weird. It's funny. I always tell people, I'm like, yo, my favorite people are introverts. Like I really don't. And it's not that I can't talk to anybody, but like my favorite people are introverts. Cause I'm always like, what's in that brain?
Right.
Yeah.
Give it here.
Tell me something.
I mean, it's one of those things where like it's caused me, knowing that, I'm very selective about like, hey, if I'm going to have a conversation today, I'm going to make it a very powerful conversation because I don't get that back. You know, like that's kind of the mindset that I bring to it, where I do a little bit of prep work before, because I'm just like, if I just like stumble into a conversation, I don't ramp up during the conversation to suddenly become, you know, the keynote speaker type of mentality. I put that work in prior to a conversation where I sit there and I just like, and I center myself and I'm like, bring it, because you don't get it back, right? It's like putting $1 into the video game. And if you sit there and you don't play and you lose all your lives, like you lost the $1, it doesn't give it back and say, oh, you sucked. Like here's your money back. Like, no, it's gone. Right. So that's very much kind of the mindset I bring to conversations that I have on a daily basis, where I make them, my goal is to make every conversation I have like very meaningful. And there are days where, I mean, the only person who I really talk to will be my wife. And, and I'll just like, and I'll use all my coins for that. Right. Where I just like give into those things. And then there are days where I have 4, 5, 6 different calls or conversations. And I mean, the nice thing is that my wife, like, she gets that because she's the same way. Right. And so she can tell when I've hit that brick wall, and she's just like, okay, let's just hang out. Let's just like watch a show or something. Let's, we'll go to bed, blah, blah, blah. So that's really nice. And so for the people the people who think introverts mean you're socially awkward or you don't like, you hate other people or stuff like that. Like, no, that's not how it works. I think Simon Sinek put it really well. And if you haven't watched it, go to Simon Sinek's Instagram, because he is an introvert. He put it beautifully, where he said, being an introvert simply means you wake up with, he used the coin analogy. I wake up with 5 coins. And every time I have a conversation, I give a coin away. And when I've run out of coins, then I don't have the table stakes to have conversations. Whereas when people who are extroverts, they wake up with no coins, and every conversation they get a coin, and by the end of the day they feel rich, right? And so it's this swap that happens, and while extroverts go to sleep, those coins return back into the introverts' pockets. So
that's pretty good.
I thought it was a really interesting way to put it, because I never thought of it that way. I always thought introvert meant I don't like social interaction. I do. Like, I really enjoy conversations.
Only with certain people.
Powerful conversations. I enjoy like inquisitive, like if someone.
I think some introverts don't. I think some are like, even with that, are like, eh. There's different levels. I think there's different levels.
Yes, there are some people who definitely can hit that place of, they really just don't like social interaction, period. There are people who are like that. I'm definitely someone who is along the lines of, I enjoy quality conversations. And like, if I had to pick,
you're the introvert friend that I find, like when I'm like talking to people and it's like, give me a little bit more. Give me a little bit more.
Let me just pull this thread for another 30 minutes, 45 minutes.
Right. But then my thing is, I think sometimes it's like, I think introverts come on and they're like, wow, that wasn't that bad actually. You know what I mean? Or like, even though it like say people takes it away, and I know my high strong self can definitely be draining on my introverted friends, but when it is a deep conversation, I feel like it's appreciated.
Yeah. So my goal for the week is to have the mindset of be bold and connecting. And for me, like, that does require, like, it may not require a whole coin. It may require part of a coin, right?
Yeah.
But I may want to, on a daily basis, put half of one of my social coins into it, which means maybe that's, 2 or 3 bold introductions, conversations, whatever. And see what comes from that. Like, what's yours for the week? Like what's your goal for the week? What do you want to try and accomplish? Like, what's that mindset there?
Developing patterns. You know what I mean? I think I've shared I'm a 0 to 100 kind of guy, but trying to put together just better, consistent habits and routines. And that's like getting the X amount of water in. Like today was all my meals, you know what I mean? Meal prep them all. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No fast food, no out, no eating out. Like those are big, small wins for me. Today. I've been pulling out my sweatshirt. I love the sweatshirt. Shout out to the Six, but I'm like, I need this doesn't fit right. You know what I mean? So just getting myself together from a health and nutrition standpoint. That's a big win for me. On the work side of things,
counting your points. Remember, so for the people who are listening to this and watching this, there's a pointing system that I'm telling Brian right now. If you don't know what it is, wait for a podcast episode from me where Brian and I actually do a coaching session together, and we create a point system for, like he said, creating patterns. Mm-hmm. Have you been keeping track with those points? Because you just labeled a couple of those things that you put point values towards.
So I'll tell you. Let me look at this. This is not going to look good because I really just started the 4th. But in my habits, I have a habit thing, and you can kind of see that a little bit.
Yeah.
That I'm starting to put stuff and check them based on that and whatnot. So I'm getting there, but water's in, workouts in there, half a gallon of water. Waking up, no fast food. So write that down. So yes, I started. That was something else I was going to show you too. This is titled the best journal ever. And,
yes, I love that.
But it's curated well.
Yes.
It's curated well.
How many points you get today?
Well, that's what I'm looking at now. So if I go, let me tell you what's on the list first. We got meditate, breath work. I'll do that before the day says out. Workout, didn't get that done. Half gallon of water. We're catching up. Pray, trying to be better at that. That goes along with meditation. Read a book. Rise by 5. Off tech and sleep by 11, which that's not
we're officially past.
No fast. So we'll work backwards. Today was a no fast food day. Today rise by 5. No, we'll get some reading in. I know reading's not a top. I'll show you the book I got to show you why I think reading's more important. I have to make time for it. These aren't all the things that I have on my thing because I think ours are a little bit more micro.
A little bit more micro.
I think had stretch, workout,
I mean, if you did you get 3 points?
We will have 3. Like I still got to do my meditation and stuff like that today.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And for people who have a question about the mindset behind patterns, the mentality of patterns is just creating consistent lifestyles, because there's so many people, and I'm guilty of this, where and Brian, I know you're guilty of this too, the 0 to 100. You either hit everything or you crash and burn halfway through. People do it with diet, exercise, work, starting a business, relationships, whatever. Yeah. Insert topic here. When you're in a position where you are trying to find consistency in your life, you have to start small. Like you have to start small, which is why one of the things
tough when you've never done anything small.
It is
everything, you know what I mean?
So tough because a lot of people think it's all or nothing. They're like, you look on Instagram and they're like, hey, here's how you get 6-pack abs. And they list out 12 different things. And so then you have a day where you hit all 12 things. And the next day you hit one thing. And the next day you hit -5 things. Right. Yep. And that's how the yo-yo lifestyle works. You go way overboard to begin with. And so just take a moment to realize the people who hit all 12 things every single day never started there.
Right.
Never started there. You start with,
or they wouldn't have had to,
Yes. For the people who are like health nuts, where they're just like, hey, every single day I am, zero carbs, perfect balanced eating, and I do everything that works for me, and they look amazing. They started by just figuring out how to drink the right amount of water per day, right? Or they learned how to make a healthy breakfast, or if they knew how to make a healthy breakfast and it was a habit for them and they liked it, how do I introduce what the hell a snack is? Because snacks are important when you're trying to lose weight and you're trying to teach your body, hey, more food is coming, so it's okay to burn this stuff off. You have to introduce the fact that your body's going to continue to be fed, which can happen with snacking, like having healthy snacks.
100%.
So there's steps to it all. So stop beating yourself up. I bludgeoned myself to death, over stupid stuff that I did or didn't do. And when I learned to let that stuff go and realize,
letting go is not easy for me. Go ahead.
Go ahead. So letting go ain't easy. What's usually the stuff that you start beating yourself up on?
Man, I mean, the athlete mentality is never good enough. And I also think because it's not football and there's no game on Saturday, it's like it's a marathon. It's ever evolving, which is good and bad. And that it's always trying to beat my face in every day. That sometimes I find myself, I think, compromising things I know en route to winning success because the physical pain or discomfort isn't there. It's hard to say. It's hard for me to kind of explain. And it's funny, even with some of the conversations that I had today with some coworkers and things like that, I was like, and I'm trying to be great and I'm far from that right now. And I've had a good year going in this past year of work and performance and things like that. But I feel like I'm shoveling shit, you know what I mean? And not close to where I can be, which actually reminds me, I grabbed the book that I wanted to show you that I'm starting on. And I'll give you the backstory on why I picked this up and have actually committed to reading it.
Ooh, yes. I know that book. What is it? Think Like a Monk? Yep.
Yeah. It's fairly new. And so recently I was watching, I started just researching Batman. I thought about the time, when he became a monk and was with the Shaolin people and stuff.
Hold up for one moment. You started researching Batman. When I got a coach, when I paid more money than I was ever comfortable in getting a coach, one of the things that the coach helped me do was help me pinpoint what it looks like for me to be an amazing coach. Because it's like, hey, you want to charge a good a fee that's going to sustain you as a human being, as a husband, as a father, all those other things. But you're not comfortable charging those things because right now you think you suck. Mm-hmm. And that was one of the things that I had to address, because if I was hyper confident in my abilities and I knew I was providing value, my price would just be my price. Right. So one of the things we dove into was, when I am just on, when I am in that zone of being an amazing coach, what does that look like? And we turned it into an alter ego, which for people who have not yet read The Alter Ego Effect by Todd Herman, it's a great read. We boiled down, when I am just on as a coach, the alter ego for me is Batman. And I have done extensive research around Batman specifically. And the reason I found it out,
you got something on paper? You got some docs or links you can send me?
Bro, I am.
Yes,
I can for sure send you some stuff. And I think I have, a document where it's actually the, some of the research that I put together. Cause I was looking into stuff, cause I'm a big Star Wars fan. One of the things I was also looking into was, if you don't know the term, I'm nerding out here. This is a safe space. The gray Jedi, people who were not a part of the order of the Jedi, you know, like as you see like Yoda and other people, and also not a part of like the dark side, like, you know, Sith Lords and stuff. They're people who sit in the middle. And I was also looking into that, and I was also looking into other stuff. And the thing that really personified who I wanted to embody in terms of how I want people to feel when they're done with a conversation with me was Batman. And on that day, I shit you not, on that very day where I was just like, this is who I want to embody. My mom sent me a text, and she said, look what I just found Halloween when you were a kid. And it was me in a Batman costume. And I said, you gotta be flipping.
Same day. That's no accident, man. You know, it's funny. And the way my personality reads, it's funny. I'm an ENFPA, and I always looking for patterns and consistencies in the world. But to me, it's not I'm looking for them. I just have the ability to see them. To me, that's whatever religious practice, universe, or whatever. When things like that happen, to me, that's a God,
it's
angels,
it's all
universe,
part of the journey.
They give you sprinkle some Batman on you. You know what I mean? Like,
so, anyways. Totally cut you off. So you've been researching Batman. Why?
Yeah, because you kind of have to. I forget the exact word or term, but he's like had to destroy himself. You know what I mean? To find his true self. It's funny. I have a post waiting on IG talking about it with this book that I just haven't put out. I wanted to read a little bit more into it and stuff, but essentially, like, you know, he's searching for enlightenment. He's looking to mentally and physically better himself to essentially go fight his demons. You know what I mean? In the terms of, you know, petty street crime in Gotham City. But I thought about that, so I just wanted to start. That's what I've been like looking at and stuff like that. And then also thinking about, like, I thought Batman was the coolest as a kid because he did judo and did martial arts, and judo was kind of like, you know, it wasn't karate, it wasn't kung fu, and I liked it. I was like, oh, Batman is launching people. And I think judo is my favorite individual martial art. Like, the idea of, I think I'd even thought, I mean, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or wrestling is probably the ideal sports for self-defense. But if a skilled judo player puts you over his head and throws you on concrete, it's going to be a problem. And they can do the same thing as, you know, jiu-jitsu players for the most part, as far as like chokes, blocks, and things like that. But I think judo is a badass sport.
Oh my gosh. And if you ever watch it in the Olympics, it's amazing to watch.
Yeah, I love it. I love that. I love the culmination of it. The push, pull, chest mash, you know what I mean? And all of that. So always liked it. And then it's funny, and it's funny. I have on my vision board. Batman's not on there yet, but I was reading this thing from 5 a.m. and then it talked about, like, who would you position yourself as, you know? And I thought about Batman, and I also thought about James Bond, 007. Both of those type of dudes. I was like, all right. I was like, they're fairly well off. They're ridiculously handsome and charming. Check. Just kidding. Not really. And they can handle anybody they want with their bare hands. Batman doesn't use guns. Yeah. You know what I mean?
They've never been in a situation in which they feel the odds are actually against them. Like, there's always a way in which they understand that they can tactically and strategically get in and out of any situation that comes their way, which anybody who has that level of confidence in their own personal abilities is someone who's going to be admired. And someone who doesn't feel confident in their abilities, or like you imagine, what's the first thing that Batman flipping does when I mean, once again, nerding out, when the Justice League was founded, what is the first thing that Batman did? He learned how to make every single member, including himself, of the Justice League a non-factor. Like, if any of us got out of hand, how do we take care of the problem at that point? And they literally did they did an animated movie on that. If you're interested, if you have HBO Max, whatever, go watch it. It's really cool.
I don't. But now that I have your password, no, I'm just
kidding. It's like, it's one of those things where it's like, okay, here's something new, right? Something new. The first thing he does is educate himself as to how to overcome any potential challenge that might occur.
Right.
And he does it to perfection.
Scenarios he does it for everything.
Yes. Like that's a mm-hmm. That is anything that comes into a world like that. Like, I'm sorry, but you're playing checkers. That man is playing chess. Like, that's just 100%. The way it has been, and it always will be, no matter what the scenario. So and that's something that it doesn't matter who you are, you admire someone who can do that. And it's just such a cool thing to be like, this is what I want to work towards. Discipline. Yes. And it all comes with discipline, the discipline to sit there. And like you mentioned earlier, like going from having a lot of stuff on your plate to focusing on one thing. Mm-hmm. Your boy Superman introduces himself. You say, this man has the potential to completely demolish the entire globe. How do we potentially neutralize this boy? And he focused on one problem until he found a perfect solution to every single scenario that could present itself. Mm-hmm. Like, that's dedication, discipline.
Proper planning prevents piss poor performance.
Yes. So, man, I love this. All right. Mindset Monday is a beautiful start so far. This is one for the record books because it's the only one. Plus, we were able to talk about our boy Batman.
Is it a consistent segment? So, like, what's the most Batman thing you did this week?
I think that's going to just be part of it. What is the most Batman thing you've done this week?
Which, and if you did something un-superhero, like
that is a very broad spectrum. What did you do that was the most Batman thing? And you could sit there and you could be like, well, there's like a billion things that I could have done to be like him. And because the man does everything, right? Like you think you've done something. He's just like, sorry, but I mean, I did that to a T plus 400 other things while you were sleeping. So yes, segment alert for future episodes will be, what's the most Batman thing you've done this week?
I like the idea of us asking people that, any potential guests and things down the road too.
Right? That's going to be an awesome question. Anybody who's joining us, just like, what's the most Batman thing you've done this week? Because there's not a single person who can sit there and be like, I don't know. And you'd be like, come on now. Yeah. Everybody knows at least something they could have done. And if they haven't done it, I'll just be like, hey, you can do it now.
Yeah.
What does that look like to do something that's Batman-esque within his realm? It doesn't mean you have to go around, trying to find petty crime to punch someone in the face. But it could mean, I did something I made a strategic decision, right?
Yeah.
So I love this. This was awesome.
Yeah. I got one more thing for you. I don't know how it'll play out on here, but I just emailed it to you. And it really stuck with me today. It was a Joe Rogan thing. It was like 3 things that'll change your life. And I wanted to see if you could get it up. And I think we just kind of narrate, just kind of talk over it.
Okay. I'm pulling it up.
If you screen share, we could record it and just talk over something like that.
Yes. Okay.
It's a cool video. Plus, it'll be your first time seeing it.
I wonder if, let's go. All right. You see my screen?
Yep.
Let's do this. Let me know if you can. One, can you hear this audio?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's watch this.
Hold on. No, I can't hear it. Yeah.
They're dabbling in the idea of improving themselves. And the real way to do it is you got to write down what the fuck you want and then go after it. Because otherwise you live in sort of a wishy-washy world. You know, if you decide I'm going to get down to bang, I'm going to do this, I'm going to run a marathon in less than 5 hours, I'm going to, you know, whatever the fuck it is, you got to write that shit down and go for it. What I tell people is the best advice I've ever heard is that live your life like you're the hero in your movie. And right now is when the fucking movie starts and your life is a shitbag disaster, like every fucking Arnold Schwarzenegger movie where he wakes up and makes a blender full of pizza and ice cream. And those guys were like on the brink, they put the gun in their mouth and they put it down so you see a photo of their daughter. Pretend that's you. Pretend you are, right now, you are in the part of the movie that starts and it shows you as a fucking loser. And just decide not to be a loser anymore. Live your life like there's a documentary crew following you around and you are analyzing your own behavior. Do what you would want to do so that your kids one day would look back at it and see that documentary and look on it with pride, like, wow, my dad was a bad motherfucker. He really did what he had to do. Wow, my mom really got her shit together. I love a success story, but even more than a success story, I like a dude who fucks his life up and then gets it back together again story. Those are my favorite stories. And the way to do that, you gotta write shit down. You gotta think that you are the hero of your own fucking movie, and then you gotta sit down and you gotta write shit down. Write down what you need to do. Yeah, this life is fucking me over, man. I could have had this and I should have had that. And why does this guy get that? And why does that guy get this? And all things that are completely unrelated to you. All things that you find other people's success as a downfall in your own existence. Instead of being inspired, instead of choosing to be positive, instead of like improving constantly on the direction of trying to achieve whatever the fuck you have written down, you just sit around and spiral. There's nothing more miserable than sitting around someone that's fucking complaining all the time. It's one of the most annoying things ever. Everybody hates it. When someone just sits around and they complain about their life and they don't do jack shit about it. And you tiptoe around it, you don't know what to say. Well, she gets upset when you bring that up. I don't want to bring that up. And you want to go, you fucking crazy bitch, you know what's wrong with your life. Stop announcing it to everybody else and go out and fix that shit. I think that there's a lot of people out there that think somehow or another you're going to get to some place where you're living in silk sheets and you're getting your toes done while someone's dropping grapes into your mouth. I don't want that. I've never wanted that. That guy's not going to be happy. He's going to be bored. An hour into the grapes, you can get those fucking grapes away from me. Stop painting my toes. What am I doing in this bed? I got to do something. I'm not stimulated. The human organism, the animal that we are, needs constant stimulation because it evolved trying to find food and escape enemies and find shelter, escape nature, escape the elements, try to survive. And this is the great joy that you have in taking care of your children, that you can protect your children from the elements and the enemies and feed them. And it's also the great sadness that you see in losers. When I see a loser, I see some guy who's 43 years old, lives in his parents' basement, and he fucking hates the world. I'm like, that was a baby. Man, this is a baby that somebody just gave shitty nutrients to, whether it's nutrients in the form of food or in the form of thoughts and ideas and examples. And this kid developed these horrible, self-defeating patterns of behavior that have led them to this point where they're this middle-aged person with no future and no idea of how to get out of this rut and probably never will escape it and might just wind up sucking on a gun. This is the world that we live in today. And I think part of that world is because we have been fed this line of horseshit that you're supposed to seek comfort. And I don't think you are. I think you're supposed to seek lessons and you're supposed to seek difficult tasks and accomplishments. And through those things and through doing things that are hard to do, even if it's just a fucking 90-minute hot yoga class. I do a 90-minute yoga class. Those last 20 minutes, I do not want to be there, man. And I definitely don't want to give 100%. And I can cheat. But if I don't and I get through it, when that time is up and the lady says namaste and everybody gets up, I'm like, fuck, man, I made it. I lost 15 pounds. My fucking yoga mat is drenched to the point where I can literally wring it out, fill a jug up with water, through that struggle, I will now have a better day. And I better fucking do it again tomorrow. Or do something else Because if I just think, well, tomorrow I'm just going to coast and eat Twinkies and watch TV. Oh, hello, sadness, my old friend. Hello, depression. Because when you're not doing anything, you feel like shit. And that's just part of being a human being. And we can pretend that we're something other than what we really are. And we can pretend, nah, me, man, I'm just cool, just chilling, doing nothing. Bullshit. You're a fucking human. You're a human being. You evolved from the hundreds of thousands of years of hunters and gatherers and people that were struggling. Human reward systems are carved deeply into your DNA. And if you don't respect that, if you don't respect the mechanism of happiness and fulfillment and what you really need to do in order to feel satisfied in life, camaraderie, love, family, friendship, struggle, testing yourself, learning, all those things are imperative. They're all a giant part of being a person. I think the one thing that discipline definitely does help you with is it helps you get things done. And when you get things done, when you actually do things, you have more success. And sometimes a big part of success is just not being fucking lazy and just doing it. That's like 90% of it is just showing up. Get there and start working. Like, you're not going to feel perfect every day. If I only worked out when I felt good, I'd be a fat fuck. There's a lot of days I don't want to do it. I mean, it's pretty much the same with everybody that actually gets good at something. There's got to be those days you push through. And they're probably going to be more numerous than the days you don't. And so the benefit of discipline in my eyes has always been that through discipline, I get things done. I always say that I'm like the most lazy, disciplined person I know because I don't want to do it, but I always do. There's a great book on it. Stephen Pressfield wrote a book called The War of Art. And Pressfield was essentially like a ne'er-do-well. He was kind of a fuck-up. A lot of artists and comics, I bet musicians as well, but writers for sure, one of the big problems is sitting down and doing the work. And Pressfield talks about that in the most concise and beautiful way. And he labels it like an enemy. He calls it resistance, and that you have to sit down, you have to overcome resistance, and that the pro goes to work. And it doesn't matter if you're sick, it doesn't matter if you have kids, it doesn't matter what, you're a pro and you go to work. And that just, it puts it in your head that this is what I do. This is what, and you have pride in that. And then when you are in front of that keyboard and you look down the count, it says, put 1,000 words in, you're doing the work. Out of that work, gems blossom. But you might have a day where you just write nothing but dog shit. So what? Show up again tomorrow. And tomorrow out of that dog shit, a flower will emerge.
All right. If that doesn't get you sweating, I don't know what will.
Yeah. That's one of the better pieces of content I've seen in a while that really resonated with me. It's a YouTube channel. It's called Fight Mediocrity, something like that.
I love it.
That's good.
I love it.
Yeah.
I think that's a beautiful place to end our first Mindset Monday, my friend.
I like it. I think we should put it out this week on Wednesday or Thursday or something as a throwback. And say, Get ready for the next one.
Yes. Here's just a taste. The next few will be live. So for people who are watching this, let us know in the comments. Do you love it? Do you hate it? Do you think we're a couple of schmucks doing this stuff? What did you take away that was really powerful? What would you like for us to potentially cover? Give us some ideas. If you want to even be on it, this is about people just feeling comfortable, feeling okay with, to put it bluntly, sharing shit, right? We're human. We're all in a position where we're going through this life together. And it's about making the conversation normal. So I had a blast. I talked about stuff that's hard for me to, talk about. I know Brian did the same. Had a moment where I had to take a deep breath because I was like, am I getting emotional here? What is happening? So I think, at least from my perspective, I got a ton of value out of this. Brian, closing thoughts.
And I think it's just the start of the process. I think the big thing, I'm a big fan of the idea of just making and doing, And I think putting one leg in front of the other, I love doing this. And I think even though we're going to do someone on IG Live, I think it might be smart to do a consistent open invite private Zoom and just see who wants to hop on. And then from there, do a live, like maybe, we'll figure out what time things can start.
Yeah.
But I like the idea of just doing a Zoom with people and kind of having that collaborative thing, and then maybe even cutting that down to put out there. And we'll still do the lives, but I think that could be interesting.
Yes, these will get more sophisticated as time goes on, whether that means we are on Instagram Live, whether we are on, like, we do something like StreamYard, or we figure out some type of streaming platform that can connect to different social media platforms, whatever that means. We'll figure it out. As long as we accomplish the task of talking about stuff in our mindset, because it's time we make it normal. 2021 is the year we stop the bullcrap of putting up a front on your mindset, how you're actually doing. It's time to actually embrace where your mindset is at and where it can go, because I know I'm sick of sitting there and people asking me, hey, how are things going? And you have to lie about it. I used to be that person where I had to lie about that crap all the time. And when you make conversations normal, you can do something about it. I talk about it as distractions. When you talk about your distractions, your demons, whatever you want to call it, when you talk about them, you can do something about them. Just like Joe Rogan said, write stuff down, talk about it, make it okay. That's what this is about. This is why Brian and I are doing this. Hey, love you, Brian.
Love you too. Just getting started.